Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again, it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week, a weekly vlog that I put out where I ask you all as my viewers and subscribers about something that deals with firearms, the firearms cultures, news, or politics that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. A lot has been happening lately when it comes to the ATF. There have been other YouTubers that have been arrested for supposedly selling illegal machine guns, like the auto key card. Essentially, it's a credit card-sized piece of metal with an etching on it. Some people think he was in the wrong, some people think he's in the right, but the ATF enforced the law, saying that this little piece of metal with just a picture etched on it is a machine gun. Also, we have coming down the pipe some new ATF regulations when it comes to the definition of frames and receivers, as well as pistol stabilizing braces. And so a lot of people are getting really upset with them. They're saying you are overstepping your bounds. You are getting out of your lane. You are a law enforcement agency, not a legislative branch of government. Do your job and follow the law. So I wanted to make a poll about this. Now, I am under no illusions that probably the people that watch my channel are going to vote one specific way. But I wanted to discuss all of this, and I thought the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week was the way to do it. So with that said, let's dive right into this week's poll question. This week we heard from many gun news sources that the ATF raided CRS Firearms for selling the auto key card, which is essentially just a piece of metal with a drawing on it of a drop-in auto sear. We also heard from Mr. Guns and Gear and other sources that there was a leaked ATF memo where they were discussing the raiding of certain businesses and the confiscating of FRT or forced reset triggers. Do these actions by the ATF concern you? And do you feel these may eventually evolve into raids on private citizens? Do you fear for your own safety and constitutional rights? The one thing I've learned being a firearms YouTuber is even within the firearms community, not everybody agrees. I believe it was a commenter on this poll and on one of the videos where I talked about the CRS firearm issue. Somebody said, well, he should be arrested because he was selling machine guns. He knew he was poking the bear. And I kind of agree. He was poking the bear because we already know the ATF will overstep their bounds. But I think you have to look at it from the letter of the law. And that's kind of where I approach it from. I look at it as we have elected members of Congress, that they write laws. Sometimes we like those laws and sometimes we don't. But then we have a mechanism for getting rid of those legislators if we don't like them. It's called the ballot box. But essentially, we vote them in. Love it or hate it, that's the system. But when we have a government agency that looks at a statute, for example, when it comes to machine guns, it explicitly says that a machine gun is any firearm that shoots multiple rounds with a single activation of the trigger. Well, we know that forced reset triggers are not a single activation of the trigger. A bump stock is not a single activation of the trigger. The definition goes on to say any part that can convert a semi-automatic firearm into a fully automatic firearm. Well, the auto key card does not meet that definition. It essentially is just a piece of metal that is etched. It's not even perforated. You can't punch it out. All this is information. So for example, you can go online right now onto Google and look up the specifications on where to drill the third hole in an AR-15. The information is out there. Information cannot be banned. It cannot be stopped. You can also go out there and find all the specifications to make one of these drop-in auto sears. You can just go on Google. It gives you all of the little different dimensions. But what you do with that information can be legal or illegal. But the information itself is not illegal. This is a way, it's kind of like book burning. They want to stop knowledge. You can go online and discover how to create a nuclear weapon. Obviously, I'm not going to, and I don't have the means to do so. But the information on nuclear fusion in a runaway reaction is out there. You can find out about it just because you want to know. You can also learn how a Glock auto sear works. I don't own one. I don't want to own one. I'm not going to buy one. But I'm fascinated on how they work because it's just a piece of mechanics. That's all it is. But I want to know. Knowledge is not illegal. But now we have government agencies that are saying you can't have that knowledge. And we're going to interpret items that aren't even useful as machine guns. I've mentioned this before, and you can go and look it up. The ATF has said that shoelaces are machine guns because someone at some point was able to take a shoelace, wrap it around a certain part in an AK-47, and get a few rounds to go off with a single activation of the trigger. Therefore, possession of shoelaces means you can go to jail for 10 years and a $250,000 fine. Does that make any logical sense? Well, absolutely not. But it doesn't matter to them. The ends justify the means. And when you have an agency that can make anything a machine gun, I'm sure they can turn this mouse here, this laser mouse here, into a machine gun. There might be some type of part in there that you could rip off and cut and put into some gun, some out there that might make a couple rounds go off. Therefore, is this mouse a machine gun and simply owning and possessing it illegal? Should all of these be registered and confiscated? Should they be going door to door to arrest anybody that has one of these little laser mouses? That is where things start to get a little bit scary. And I know some of you guys are saying, Jason, you're being hyperbolic. Well, am I? Could you imagine all the things that are going on today happening 10 years ago, 20 years ago? If I could go back in time and say, hey, the ATF is going to be regulating shoelaces as machine guns, people would go, What are you talking about? You're crazy. You need to go to the crazy bin. Well, it's happened. And when we allow this stuff to continue to go on, well, that is how tyranny can reign, because people get used to the last regulation, to the last thing that was banned, and go, okay, well, it's in their purview. It's okay. You can ban a little piece of metal with an etching on it. That's perfectly fine because I'm not interested in that item. I don't want to use it. I don't want the knowledge. But that sets a precedent. And then when they come for the next thing, well, we've already set up a system where they can confiscate it. They can come and raid you. It's like that old saying from World War II. You know, first they came for this one group and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a member of that group. And then they came for this group and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a member of that group. And then they came for this other group and I wasn't a member of that group, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for me. And there was nobody to stand up for me. And there was nobody there to protect me because everyone else was gone. Well, that's the kind of the way it is when it comes to these laws, and we have to be careful. But saying all of that, let's see what you guys have to say with this week's results. With over 1,100 votes this week, we have yes, I feel this is a growing threat that needs to be addressed. 86%. Then we have neutral. I think each event needs to be judged case by case. 11%. No, they are only going after businesses and bad guys, 3%, and something else, explain in the comments, 1%. No, as I said, I was under no illusion that this is probably the way the results were going to go, and I definitely feel this way, but I actually think my take on this might kind of surprise you. But let's go through each one of these and talk about them. We have yes, I feel this is a growing threat that needs to be addressed. I think I talked about all of my concerns kind of in the prelude to giving you guys the results. They're out of control. They are taking statutes in federal law that are clearly read by any individual and perverting them to mean anything they want at any time for political expediency. And other YouTubers have talked about this, other lawyers have talked about this. If we allow this to happen, eventually all of those semi-automatic handguns and semi-automatic rifles that you own right now that you think it is not a machine gun, well, one day they're going to say, well, with enough work and enough time and enough knowledge, you can turn that AR-15 into an M16. You can turn that Glock into full auto. Therefore, your Glock and AR-15 that maybe you've had for 20 years is now a machine gun. You need to turn it in. There's no way to grandfather it. There's no way to register it. There's no way to keep it. Turn it in. We're confiscating your property. And because now we have a huge database on 4473s, if you don't turn one in, we're going to come in the middle of the night, kick down your door, kill your dog, and search your home. And I know many of you are thinking that can't happen. And it might not happen in your lifetime, it might not happen in mine, but I guarantee you, if we allow these infringements to continue on and allow a rogue agency to take plain reading of the law and pervert it and change it to what they want, well, maybe in 50 or 100 years, things like this would happen. Then we have neutral. I think each event needs to be judged case by case. Now, believe it or not, this is actually where I would have voted, and I'll tell you why. Now, I know some people are probably already clicking off the video. Now, I do not like the ATF. However, I do believe that sometimes they do serve a legitimate role. Now, they are way out of bounds, but think about it this way. There are many instances where gangs in inner cities are shooting each other with illegal guns and machine guns. Well, the ATF needs to go in and investigate that. Or what about gun running operations to the cartels down in Mexico? Well, I'm glad that there's ATF agents investigating that. I am glad that they are looking at illegal machine shops that are turning out guns for illegal and bad actors. I am totally cool with that. What about arson and explosives? If a place gets blown up in some type of terrorist event, well, I'm sure glad that the ATF is there to investigate. They have explosive experts. So I do believe that they serve a legitimate law enforcement function. And the ATF agents that I have personally met, the field agents, the people that are on the ground, I have never thought that they are out there waking up every day as jackbooted thugs going, what constitutional rights can I trample on? They're just field agents. Many of them signed up because they want to investigate those crimes that I just mentioned. They want to get these illegal machine guns off the street so gangs aren't shooting up each other and not killing civilians. So I can give them credit where credit is due. But I do see where many times these field agents, well, they're just following orders. And because they want to go home after a long day's work, they have no problem just executing a no-knock search warrant, killing your dog, even if it is the wrong house. And there have been stories about that. They go into the wrong house and kill the dog and scare the family, and they're like, oops, wrong address. They went in way too heavy-handed, but they're just following orders. I sure hope that many of the field agents in the future are going to be like, listen, this is unconstitutional. This isn't right. I don't want to put my life or the lives of civilians on the line if this is not executed the right way. We need to be focused on going after the real bad guys. As I said, the gangs in the inner city, the people that are using explosives that might be using them in some terroristic way. That's where the ATF needs to be focused. They also need to be focused on enforcing the law as written. If the law says a machine gun is this, a short-barreled rifle is this, then enforce the law. Don't come up with some type of regulation that says, well, even though it technically meets the definition of a semi-automatic rifle in federal law, we're going to say it's a machine gun because of the spirit of the law, and we just feel like it because some president or attorney general says to do so. That's not the way our constitutional republic is supposed to work. We are a nation of laws, not feelings. But as I said, I do believe that they serve a legitimate function, and we really should go by this on a case-by-case basis. Now, many times, what they do, I think, is absolutely wrong. I think the purview of their law enforcement powers definitely needs to be curved. I definitely think that they need to be defunded, with the exception of the NFA branch, which needs way more money so they can hire more examiners. But for the most part, they need to be curtailed. They need to have this ability to interpret law reined in, and all that power needs to go back to Congress. But I do, as I said, believe there is a little legitimate purpose for their existence. And if they stayed in their lane and did that, I think actually a lot of people, gun owners and law-abiding citizens, would look at the ATF and go, hey, they're doing good work, and we appreciate what they do. Then we have no, they are only going after businesses and bad guys. This is the thing I was saying. Today, that might be the case. They're going only after businesses. So many private citizens, law-abiding gun owners go, well, you know, I don't have an FFL, I don't have an SOT, I'm not dealing in guns. Therefore, I'm not worried that the ATF is going to come in and search my property, go through all the safes related to my business and harass me, because that's not me. But I'm promising you, one day they will. And it's all going to be under the guise of public safety. You hear this stuff from politicians all the time. They always go with the people like the gun dealers first. But once the gun dealers are gone, what are they going to do? They have to go after the private citizens. We have to go door to door and search your house. We have that right because even though it's a constitutional right to own a gun and it's a constitutional right to be protected from illegal search and seizure, the threat of it all, well, it's public safety. We're going to ignore that anyway because no right is absolute, as they like to say. Well, they're just going to come into your house, search, and arrest you. And then they're going to find something silly like I was talking about earlier, like a mouse, and go, oh my gosh, did you know that this Logitech laser mouse has an internal part that if it's cut a certain way, Well, you can drop it into some rare gun and turn it into a machine gun. Well, you own one of these Logitech laser mice. Well, we're going to arrest you. You're like, what? What are you talking about? And they're like, well, come with us, sir. Well, if you don't like it, talk to the judge. I know, it seems hyperbolic, but I'm telling you, that is how despots control their people, through fear. And they will make examples. Then we have something else explained in the comments, just 1%. So you guys know how I feel on this. As I said, I kind of think the ATF needs to be judged on a case-by-case basis, but the purview of what they can do and their interpretation of law needs to be greatly curved. So let's see what you guys had to say with the top-rated comments of the week. With the top-rated comment of the week, we have the reindeer, the rabbit, the bat, who says, yes, this is very concerning and should not be taken lightly. Who are all these bootlicking policy enforcers and where do they frequent? It's high time to sit them down for a little talk. You know, as I said, I have no problem with the ATF agents. The field agents that I have met have always been nice and professional. My problem is the ATF agents that one day will be asked to enforce these unconstitutional laws, and maybe in their minds they go, wow, I don't really think I should be doing this. This really isn't what the law says, but I'm just following orders. They're paying my paycheck. They're giving me a pension. All right, I'll go out there and put my boot down on some law-abiding citizens. After all, it's not me. If I destroy their life, I don't care. But I also think there's some ATF agents out there that probably wouldn't do that. I want to believe that there's a lot of good people in the agency and they would not enforce it. But I guess only time will tell on that if we go down the path of tyranny. Then we have JaredDog3, who says, if they spent as much time going after criminals, violent gangbangers, shoplifters, child predators, as they do law-abiding citizens that are just exercising their constitutional rights, this would be a much better country. And this is where I think the people, especially at the top of these agencies, don't get it. If they were doing the good work of perp walking all of these really bad actors, well, we would applaud them. We would say, thank you for doing your job, and we are glad that we are giving you guys money to enforce these laws. But when they spend a majority of their time going after people that would never be a threat, well, that becomes a problem. They want to go around and harass private citizens. They want to make examples of private citizens. Just like if they go to some FFL for an inspection and they forget to date one item, well, they can lose their license, they can go to jail, they can be fined thousands and thousands of dollars. And the FFL's intention was never to break the law. Their intention was to run a great business that provided firearms to legal firearm owners and consumers. But because they forget to date, well, they're being perp walked, they're going to jail, and they're one of the bad apple gun dealers. Or a private citizen, as I said. Let's just say that you find grandfather's old war trophy from World War II and it happens to be a machine gun. Well, you're not going to go out and rob a bank. You don't want to hurt anybody, and you don't even know what the law is. And it turns out that someone finds out you have it, the ATF comes knocking on your door, and now you're going to jail for 10 years and you owe them $250,000. Well, that's what the law says. You owned a machine gun. You had no idea, and you were not going to hurt anybody. You weren't going to take that gun and funnel it into illegal commerce, but they come after you. But yet they'll arrest people that might be doing terroristic things across the country in these mostly peaceful protests, and then they get out on pretty much their own recognizance because we're not going to charge them bail. But your life is destroyed, and you lose your constitutional rights for the rest of your life. Then we have Stevo545, who says, a prequel to the brace rules perhaps. However, I don't see how they can pull off any action on these new rules logistically with a sheer volume of braces and other precursor parts in the wild. And this is something I've said. There are too many of these braced pistols out there. There were way too many of the bump stocks out there before they got banned. So as far as I can tell, people are just going to shut up. They're not going to say anything. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to create an environment of fear. Do I think that all 800,000 of those bump stocks were destroyed? Absolutely not. I'm 100% sure of the 47 that I think were turned in, and maybe there was a small contingency of people that actually destroyed them. I think most of them just are sitting in gun safes, or they're in people's basements or attics, or maybe, who knows, they were lost in a boating accident. They weren't destroyed. You know that as well as I do. They're out there. But now they're contraband, but they're going to make people fearful. So some people are going to give them up, some people aren't, but they're still out there. They don't go door to door looking for them, but you know, if you owned one, don't take it out, don't use it, don't talk about it. What's the first rule of Fight Club? Don't talk about Fight Club, right? What's the first rule of bump stock? Don't talk about bump stock. I think the same thing applies here. They don't have the manpower to enforce it, but they can get you to follow the rules through fear. Then we have James Parrott, who says, I think we should be fighting to abolish the NFA and the ATF. Then we wouldn't have to worry about this, or bump stocks, or suppressors. This is a fight the companies should be fighting. And I completely agree. As I said, I don't think we should necessarily abolish the ATF in total. They actually do some good investigative work for those instances that I was mentioning. However, the NFA definitely needs to be repealed. Why in the world does a rifle that has a barrel length of 15.9 inches need to be regulated so heavily and is so dangerous, but 16 inches? Totally fine. It makes absolutely no sense. Same thing with shotguns. You know, suppressors are the same way. In other countries, you can buy them over the counter in hardware stores. They're just accessories, but here, they're the tools of assassins. It makes no sense. And I think that chipping away at the NFA is a smart way to go. And over time, I think we can get a lot of it repealed. And he's right. The companies need to be stepping up. They are the ones that sell these products. And if the NFA was repealed, well, you wouldn't have to worry about all these long waits, and they could sell more of their products legally to law-abiding consumers that are going to use their products in lawful ways, which benefits everybody. And then finally we have Brian Edgett, who says, it is concerning. The ATF are not elected legislators, they are LEOs. That means they do not make the law, they enforce the law. And he's absolutely right. Law enforcement needs to enforce the law. They have to be able to open up a statute and say, this is the definition of a machine gun. Well, these FRT triggers, well, you got to pull the trigger each time for each shot. Well, it's not a machine gun. There's nothing we can do. Now, they can advise Congress and say, listen, there is this new technology out there. We have bump stocks and FRT triggers. Now, this is the definition of a machine gun. If you guys want to change the definition and then we can enforce it, by all means, go ahead and do so. But we're just telling you what we can do and what we can't. It says we can't in the law. You guys need to fix this. And then our representatives can look at it and go, well, should we change the law or not? Therefore, power to the people. The people's representatives are making these decisions and not unelected bureaucrats doing it just because they're told to. As I mentioned in This Week in Gun News, these people were going to pass this rule no matter what. You could have 500 million comments saying you can't pass this regulation, it's illegal. Well, they're still going to pass it because they don't have to listen to you. That's just the way that it goes. So where's all of this going? Who knows? But it's going to take a bunch of concerned citizens writing into their congressmen, writing into their legislators, writing into their governors, writing into the president, the vice president, anybody that will listen, and donating to organizations that are fighting this to stop it. We have to fight this. It is a multi-generational fight. And just because we don't get it repealed this year, or in 5 years, or 10 years, or stop them in 25 years, doesn't mean we don't continue fighting. We have to fight this battle like the anti-gunners do. They have been fighting this battle since 1934. They never sleep, and they just pass the baton on to the next generation, knowing maybe the next generation will finally get those guns banned. Well, we have to be fighting it and go, well, we didn't get it repealed this time, but one day our kids, our grandkids might be able to walk into a gun store and buy a suppressor and walk out with it the same day legally. And that's what our goal should be. It's a fight that we can win, but it might take us a while. So there we go. That is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. I hope you guys enjoy these segments. If you want to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I will also post a link in the comments. Please go down there, vote on next week's poll, comment and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comments of the week. And if you've stayed this far, I want to invite you guys to go check out my Rumble channel. It is a free speech platform. All of my videos that I publish here get get published over there as well. They monetize me. It's a very small community. There's not a lot of gun creators over there, but I actually think they're going to be the future and true rival to YouTube. You guys can also join me on Patreon, and I want to thank all of my Patreon supporters who support me every single month to help me keep all of this content coming. And of course, my two major sponsors, Brownworks Incorporated and Big Daddy Unlimited. There will be links in the description below, so please go check them out if you want to support the Texas Gun Vault. There are affiliate links to help me out. Go click that. Go see what these companies have to offer, and they are providing such a great service to firearms enthusiasts everywhere, and they're supporting the Texas Gun Vault, so I hope you guys want to go over there and support them as well. So there you go, the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching.